Have you ever followed what you believed was a healthy diet, filled with vegetables, smoothies, and clean foods, yet your lab results kept getting worse? Your creatinine climbed, and your doctor warned you that your kidneys might be heading toward failure. I'm Dr. Mark Ellis, and if that question feels uncomfortably close to your reality, you're not alone, because thousands of Americans are doing everything right, yet walking straight into a silent kidney disaster they never saw coming. What makes this so dangerous is that the threat doesn't come from junk food or obvious toxins, but from everyday healthy vegetables that can quietly overload fragile kidneys until one day your labs suddenly spike your potassium, jumps into the danger zone, and you find yourself having conversations no one is ever prepared to hear. But here's the part most people never learn in time. It's not just what vegetables you eat, it's which specific ones, and even more importantly, how they're prepared, that can determine whether your kidneys stay stable for years or rapidly decline without warning. And today I'm going to show you exactly why so many well-intentioned people get blindsided and how you can avoid becoming one of them with clear science-based choices that protect your kidneys instead of harming them. Because once you understand the hidden variable behind vegetable safety, you gain back control, real control over your kidney future. And that is why, before we go any further, I need you to stay with me, because the next few minutes may be the difference between maintaining the kidney function you still have and losing it faster than you ever imagined. Let's uncover the truth together. When we talk about foods that quietly push your kidneys toward danger, artichokes rarely make anyone's watch list. They look harmless, they sound gourmet, and most people assume anything served in a Mediterranean dish must be good for you. But that illusion is exactly why so many kidney patients get blindsided. One of my patients, Robert, a 62-year-old former architect, swore he only ate clean foods. He didn't touch processed snacks, avoided red meat, and proudly told me his favorite side dish was steamed artichoke hearts. Yet month after month, his potassium crept higher until one day his lab flagged a critical alert potassium, approaching the danger zone where heart rhythms become unstable and life-threatening. He was shocked, his wife was terrified, and neither of them understood how a simple vegetable could create that kind of chaos inside his body. The truth is painfully simple. 1 cup of cooked artichoke hearts can load you with up to 480 milliliters of potassium, almost identical to eating a whole banana, except this danger is hidden inside a food most people never question. And for kidneys that are already struggling to regulate potassium, even that seemingly small amount can tip the balance. Research from major renal health organizations, including the National Kidney Foundation, classifies artichokes as high potassium foods and warns that vulnerable kidneys often cannot process that mineral fast enough to keep you safe. What makes this even trickier is preparation steaming keeps most of the potassium locked inside, while boiling removes significantly more, but very few people know this, and even fewer adjust their cooking methods accordingly. So if you're in stage 1 or 2 CKD with normal potassium levels, you may get away with a few tablespoons as a garnish, not a full serving. In stage 3, it already becomes a food you must treat with caution. And in stage 4 or 5, especially if you've ever been warned about high potassium artichokes, shift from being a trendy side dish to a quietly dangerous decision. Moderation isn't just advice here, it's survival. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next vegetable hides a double-edged danger that even more people overlook, and it's far more common on modern healthy plates than you might think. And if artichokes were a hidden danger, few ever suspected celery takes that surprise to a whole new level, not because of how it looks, but because of how aggressively it can overwhelm kidneys when consumed the wrong way. Most people see celery as the poster child of clean living, the kind of vegetable you snack on, with hummus or juice for a morning cleanse. But one of my patients, Valerie, learned the hard way that this innocent-looking stalk can turn into a biochemical storm. She had been drinking celery juice every morning because social media convinced her it would detox her body. Instead, it nearly pushed her into the ER with rising potassium, crippling fatigue, and early signs of stone formation. Her kidneys simply couldn't manage anymore. What she and millions of others never realized is that celery is loaded with both potassium and oxalate, a double hit that fragile kidneys struggle to handle. On paper, 190 milligrams of oxalate per 100 grams might not sound dramatic, until you understand that oxalate binds with calcium to form the sharp needle-like crystals that make up 80% of kidney stones worldwide. And the danger doesn't stop there. Celery juice is far more concentrated than the vegetable itself. A single glass can pack 1040 to 1300 millimolar of potassium and nearly 1000 millimolar of oxalate, a level that can swallow half a day's potassium limit for many CKD patients and exceed oxalate safety thresholds by more than 20 times. Trendy? Yes. Safe for vulnerable kidneys? Absolutely not. So while a couple of celery sticks may be acceptable for early-stage CKD, with no stone history, juicing transforms it into something your kidneys cannot control. This is why I tell patients, eat your celery, don't drink it. Your body handles whole foods gradually, but juices hit your kidneys like a tidal wave they never asked for. And yet understanding celery's risks is only the beginning, because the next vegetable doesn't just carry one danger, it hides two risks that intensify each other in ways most people have never even heard of. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next vegetable combines two silent threats that escalate the moment they hit weakened kidneys, and almost no one realizes how dangerous that combination truly is. And if celery's danger lies in its concentrated punch, eggplant introduces an entirely different kind of trap, one that feels gentle, almost comforting, yet hides a dual threat that can quietly sabotage kidney function meal after meal. Eggplant shows up everywhere in Mediterranean dishes, in curries, and healthy plant-based recipes. It's versatile, low-calorie, and visually inviting. That's exactly why so many people with kidney disease assume it's a safe choice. But one of my longtime patients, Monica, a 58-year-old teacher, was stunned when her potassium levels spiked despite her strict low-potassium diet. After tracking her meals carefully, the culprit revealed itself: generous servings of roasted eggplant she added to nearly every dinner because she believed it was a light, kidney-friendly vegetable. But here's the science most people never hear about. A single cup of cooked eggplant contains 458 milliliters of potassium, placing it firmly in the high potassium category. And just as concerning, that same serving delivers around 40 milliliters of oxalate, which already maxes out the daily limit recommended for individuals prone to kidney stones. Eat a typical portion 1.5 to 2 cups in a dish like eggplant parmesan or a hearty curry, and suddenly you're consuming 60 to 80 milliliters of oxalate, well beyond what vulnerable kidneys can safely process. Even cooking method changes the stakes dramatically. Boiling can reduce potassium to around 246 milliliters, but roasting, grilling, or pan frying lock the minerals inside, increasing the risk for anyone dealing with impaired filtration. So what does this mean in real life? If you're in stage 1 or 2 CKD with normal potassium levels, half a cup of boiled eggplant may still fit into your diet. Emphasis on boiled, not fried or roasted. Stage 3, patients should treat eggplant as an occasional side, not a staple. And stage 4 or 5 individuals, especially those already battling hyperkalemia or recurrent stones, often need to avoid it entirely. Eggplant isn't the villain, it's the hidden load your kidneys don't have the strength to carry. But even this dual-risk vegetable is only the beginning, because the next leafy green doesn't just strain your kidneys, it overwhelms them on multiple fronts all at once. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next vegetable unleashes a 3-layered burden that can overpower weakened kidneys faster than most people ever realize. If eggplant creates a quiet, 2-sided burden for the kidneys, Swiss chard is the vegetable that doesn't whisper, it strikes all at once. People often admire it for its vibrant colors, its reputation as a super green, and its place in countless wellness recipes. But beneath that beauty lies a nutritional overload that even healthy kidneys work hard to manage, and vulnerable kidneys simply cannot. One of my patients, Daniel, a 67-year-old retired firefighter, learned this the hard way. After switching from spinach to Swiss chard, because he believed it was a safer, cleaner green, he was shocked when his lab showed a sudden surge in potassium, worsening blood pressure, and the early signs of stone formation. He had unintentionally replaced one problem with another, just more severe, and the numbers explain why. 1 cup of cooked Swiss chard contains 961 milliliters of potassium, the equivalent of eating nearly 2 large bananas in a single serving. Add to that a staggering 650 to 900 milliliters of oxalate, rivaling and even surpassing spinach, and you already have a dangerous combination. But there's a third hit, 313 milligrams of sodium per serving, consuming about 15% of many CKD patients' daily limit in just one cup. Potassium stresses the heart, oxalate stresses the kidneys, and sodium strains blood pressure and fluid balance. Swiss chard is quite literally a triple threat high enough in all three minerals to overwhelm compromised filtration systems within minutes, not hours. So what does safe consumption look like? For stage 1 or 2 CKD patients with no stone history, an occasional quarter cup, not a full serving, may be tolerated, but it should never become a daily staple. Stage 3 patients should reconsider entirely because the risks begin to outweigh any nutritional benefit. And for anyone in stage 4 or 5, or those with a history of hyperkalemia or calcium oxalate stones, Swiss chard isn't just a poor choice, it's a dangerous gamble with predictable consequences. Beautiful, yes. Beneficial, not for fragile kidneys. Yet even this triple threat vegetable is only a preview of what's coming next, because the next food on our list carries a form of risk that doesn't just strain the kidneys, it can physically injure them in ways most people never imagine. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next vegetable delivers an aggressive chemical burden that can cause direct damage deep inside the kidneys, something far more dangerous than its mild flavor suggests. If Swiss chard overwhelms the kidneys with a triple mineral load, rhubarb presents an entirely different level of danger, one that doesn't just stress kidney function, but can physically injure the kidneys from the inside. Most people associate rhubarb with spring pies, bright jams, and nostalgic desserts, never realizing that beneath its tart flavor lies one of the highest oxalate concentrations found in any commonly eaten plant. And this is exactly what happened with my patient Linda, a 52-year-old woman who believed she was eating natural, wholesome foods by adding fresh rhubarb to her morning oatmeal. Over several weeks, she began experiencing back pain, nausea, and dark urine symptoms she brushed off until her kidney function suddenly collapsed, sending her to the hospital with acute kidney injury. Rhubarb contains 500 to 1,000 millimoles of oxalate per 100 grams, a staggering amount that dwarfs spinach, beet greens, and virtually every vegetable people are warned about. Many kidney stone patients are told to limit oxalate to 40-50 milligrams per day, meaning a single serving of rhubarb can exceed that limit by 20 to 30 times. And the danger doesn't stop with stones. When oxalate floods the system at high doses, it can bind with calcium and form sharp crystals that lodge directly inside the delicate tubules of the kidney. These crystals don't just accumulate, they injure, inflame, and block filtration pathways, creating a rapid cascade that can shut down kidney function. A published case report describes exactly this. A woman consuming rhubarb daily developed severe oxalate toxicity, dropping her eGFR from normal levels to 13 mmol in a matter of weeks. Can rhubarb ever be safe? Only with extreme caution. Removing the skin helps because it contains some of the highest concentrations. Boiling can reduce soluble oxalate by up to 49%, but only if you discard the cooking water completely. Cooking rhubarb with milk or pairing it with calcium-rich foods can also bind some oxalate before it reaches the kidneys. But even with all these precautions, rhubarb remains a risky food for anyone with reduced kidney function or a history of stones. Early-stage CKD patients might manage an occasional serving once a month, but for stages 3 through 5, rhubarb is a danger not worth entertaining. And yet, even understanding rhubarb's aggressive oxalate load is only part of the story, because the next food on our list doesn't just challenge the kidneys, it reveals a nutritional trap that many people fall into when trying to eat healthy without realizing how dramatically different varieties of the same vegetable can affect their lab results. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next food exposes a hidden difference between two nearly identical vegetables, one dangerous, one safe. And most kidney patients never learn which is which until it's too late. If rhubarb showed us how a single compound can physically injure the kidneys, the story of winter squashes reveals a different kind of trap, one that fools people precisely because these vegetables look so similar on the outside. Many of my patients assume that if one type of squash is kidney-friendly, then all of them must be. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Take Michael, a 70-year-old man trying hard to follow a renal-safe diet. He replaced potatoes with roasted acorn squash, believing it was a healthier, lower potassium alternative. Yet within weeks, his potassium levels shot up again, and he came to me frustrated, confused, and convinced something must be wrong with his medication. The problem wasn't his treatment, it was the squash he trusted. Here's the surprising truth: not all winter squashes are created equal. A cup of cooked butternut squash contains about 582 milligrams of potassium, already high enough to cause issues in stage 3-5 CKD. But acorn squash goes even further, packing roughly 896 milligrams of potassium per cup, making it one of the most potassium-dense vegetables commonly found in American kitchens. That is more than 4 times the potassium of a serving that many kidney patients can safely handle. And yet, sitting right next to these high-potassium varieties is an option that almost no one talks about: spaghetti squash, which contains only 181 milliliters of potassium per cup, making it nearly 5 times safer for kidney health. The irony is painful. People often choose the dangerous versions because they look more familiar or appear in more recipes, never realizing the gentler option was available the entire time. So what does this mean for daily eating? If you're in stage 1 or 2 CKD with stable potassium, you may tolerate small portions of butternut or acorn squash, but even then, the serving should be limited to a half cup. For stage 3, these squashes become difficult to fit into a potassium-restricted diet, and for stage 4 or 5, they often need to be avoided completely. Instead, spaghetti squash and summer varieties like zucchini provide the warmth, comfort, and versatility people want without overwhelming their potassium limits. Making this switch alone has helped many of my patients stabilize their labs without feeling deprived. But even understanding the dramatic difference between these squashes is only one step, because the next vegetable on our list looks harmless, even earthy and rustic, yet it hides a potassium oxalate combination that misleads countless people who believe they're making a healthier swap. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next vegetable disguises itself as a better choice while delivering a double burden that can quietly push kidney function in the wrong direction. And if the confusion between winter squash varieties wasn't enough, Rutabaga adds yet another twist, one that misleads people who genuinely believe they're choosing a safer alternative to potatoes. It's earthy, hardy, and frequently recommended in low-carb communities as a cleaner swap. But for kidney patients, especially those with potassium or oxalate concerns, Rutabaga often becomes one of the most deceptive choices on the plate. I remember a patient named Gerald, a 65-year-old man with early-stage CKD, who proudly told me he had replaced mashed potatoes with mashed Rutabaga because he'd read online that it was kidney-friendly. Yet within a few months, his labs told a different story: rising potassium, fluctuating blood pressure, and a sudden recurrence of kidney stone symptoms that confused and frightened him. The truth is that Rutabaga carries a hidden dual burden. 1 cup of cooked Rutabaga contains roughly 554 milligrams of potassium, placing it in the same high range as the very foods kidney patients are routinely warned about. But what many people overlook is that Rutabaga also delivers 60 to 80 milligrams of oxalate per serving, exceeding the daily recommended limit for anyone prone to calcium oxalate stones. This combination of high potassium and high oxalate means that Rutabaga doesn't just make kidney management harder, it can work against 2 different treatment goals at once. Even the preparation method matters. While double boiling can reduce potassium, most people don't use this technique, leaving the vegetable far more potent than they realize. So how can kidney patients navigate this safely? If you're in stage 1 or 2 CKD with no stone history and stable potassium, small portions around half a cup may fit into your diet, but only if properly double boiled. For stage 3, it becomes a borderline option. And for stages 4 and 5, Rutabaga is usually a risk not worth taking. Thankfully, there are alternatives. Cauliflower mash offers the same comforting texture with only 176 milligrams of potassium per cup, making it a go-to substitute among renal dietitians. Choosing cauliflower instead of Rutabaga may seem like a small swap, but for many of my patients, it's the difference between worsening labs and maintaining stability. But even after uncovering Rutabaga's hidden dangers, we're still not finished, because the final vegetable on our list doesn't just strain the kidneys. It has been documented to trigger life-threatening potassium spikes that send patients straight to the emergency room. But just knowing this alone isn't enough because the next food can cause potassium levels to soar to fatal ranges, even in people who think they're eating one of the healthiest vegetables on earth. And if Rutabaga revealed how a healthy swap can backfire sweet potatoes, take that risk to an entirely different level, because this time the danger comes from a vegetable widely celebrated as a superfood. Sweet potatoes appear everywhere in wellness, recipes, diabetic meal plans, and weight loss programs. They're colorful, comforting, and praised for their fiber and antioxidants. But for people with weakened kidneys, especially those in stages 3 to 5, sweet potatoes can become one of the most dangerous foods on the plate. I'll never forget a case involving a 78-year-old patient on dialysis who believed dried sweet potatoes were a perfect natural snack. Within 48 hours, he collapsed with dizziness and an irregular heartbeat. His potassium had skyrocketed to 8.3, a level so high that cardiologists classify it as a medical emergency, where the heart can stop without warning. The science behind this danger is unmistakable. A single cup of baked sweet potato with the skin contains 540 to 570 mg of potassium, already taking up a huge portion of the daily limit for many kidney patients. Add to that 97 mg of phosphorus and 50 to 60 mg of oxalate, and you have a triple burden that vulnerable kidneys simply cannot filter effectively. But the real threat comes from dried sweet potatoes. Removing the water concentrates the potassium, dramatically pushing levels to 980 mg per 100 grams, nearly double the load of the cooked version. In a documented case series, a patient who consumed just 100 grams a day of dried sweet potato for a month developed severe nausea, vomiting, and cardiac rhythm abnormalities associated with potassium levels around 7.0. Another patient, thinking he was eating a healthy alternative to chips, consumed 300 grams over 2 days and arrived at the ER with a heart rate of 32 beats per minute and a dangerously distorted ECG. So what does safe consumption look like? For those in CKD stages 1 or 2 with stable potassium, an occasional small serving may be managed, but only with strict preparation. Peeling, slicing, soaking, and double boiling can reduce potassium by up to 50–75%. Even then, it should never become a routine food. For stages 3 to 5, sweet potatoes, especially dried forms, pose severe risks and are best avoided entirely. Safer alternatives like cauliflower spaghetti squash or white rice provide far less potassium and are easier for fragile kidneys to handle. But even after exposing the risks of all 8 vegetables, your journey doesn't end here, because understanding the foods that can quietly harm your kidneys is only one part of protecting your health. But just knowing this alone isn't enough, because what matters next is learning how to rebuild, support, and protect your kidneys with the right foods. And that's where the final section of this video becomes truly life-changing. At the end of the day, I want you to remember something important. Your kidneys are not failing you. They're asking for your help, and every informed choice you make gives them a fighting chance. You don't have to get everything perfect, and you don't have to feel overwhelmed by long lists of good or bad foods. What matters most is awareness, progress, and the willingness to protect your body with the knowledge you now have. And I am genuinely proud of you for staying until the end of this video, because it tells me you're someone who refuses to give up on your health. If this breakdown of kidney-damaging vegetables helped you understand your body better, please save this video so you can return to it whenever you need guidance. And make sure to subscribe to the channel, because every week I share clear science-backed kidney tips that can help you stabilize your labs, avoid dialysis, and stay in control of your future. Turn on notifications so you never miss the updates that might protect your health or the health of someone you love. And before you go, I want you to remember this kidney disease is not a journey you walk alone. With knowledge, support, and small daily changes, you can slow the damage, strengthen your body, and reclaim the hope you might have lost. Your story isn't finished, it's just beginning, and I'm here to help you write the healthier chapters ahead. Stay strong, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.